and almost kind of like the state explanation of what happened.
Sure.
But then he also, if you listen to it, he kind of really goes into depth while the other interactions are happening about how there was civil unrest, there was ethnic wars, there was civil wars.
Yeah, there was a lot bad going on before that.
It was like hell on earth. Yeah. Well, it was hell on earth after
that happened. I'm sorry.
And it just basically kind of wiped out how we saw everything. But in 15 short years, and he says, thank your parents because they're the ones, their blood, sweat, and tears have rebuilt everything.
Right.
This whole time that he's doing his lecture and looking out the window and everything like that, because he's an older dude, he's talking about living in some place. That's whenever Shinji gets a message on his laptop saying, hey, are you the pilot of the robot? And he's like, and he looks around, he sees two little girls in the back kind of waving at him. So he's like, yes. Everybody floods him.
Right.
And that's whenever, again, you get to see that little bastard Kinsuke basically sitting over there going, he's like, oh, he's kind of jealous.
Oh, yeah.
You can tell he's jealous
sure.
that he's a kid his age actually getting to pilot one of these giant robots.
And that's all he lives for is like the robots and the
everything.
That.
He's all about it.
Right.
Which is pretty funny. So he gets you can tell he gets a little pissed off, you know? And then that's when you see them all around, the class ends, and you can hear the class rep, hey, everybody needs to bow. So she's all by the book.
Right.
And they're, Toji's sitting in the very back, Kinsuke sitting to the side, and they're just all kind of like, wait a minute, we run this fucking classroom. You're not a celebrity. While all the kids are like, oh man, you're like the celebrity of the school. You're like the coolest dude we know. This is awesome, right? And then right after that, they're in the schoolyard. And Shinji's getting his ass kicked.
Yes, he is.
He's like, listen here. I had to give you this. I had to punch you for what happened. You know, I had to at least get one punch in. You know, or else I wouldn't really like myself. If
This
I
is Toji.
That's Toji.
Yeah.
That's the badass.
Yeah.
You know, he's gonna hop on his fucking Huffy bike later and fucking skid out.
While he's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, and stop some dude from eating a chocolate bar on the ground.
That's right.
You know, but then Kinsuke's still being a dick too, and he's like, "Come on, that's how it is, man."
Yeah.
I think that's actually like his quote too. He says something like, what does he say? Yeah, it's basically that's how he is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, okay, so he's already an asshole. So he's going to be a bigger dick now over something that Shinji, you know, has almost no control over a little bit. But at the same time, Shinji looks at him after he gets punched and he's kind of sitting there. He's like, I don't even want to be in this thing anymore. That pisses him off even more, which is fucked up because Shinji's still trying to fit in, and these guys are his peers, and they're already kicking the shit out of him, right? For
3 weeks in, or whatever.
Yeah, for doing what he was actually thrust into doing. He had no choice in the matter,
right?
So that's pushing him a little.
But they don't know
further.
that. They don't know the story.
They don't know all that part of it.
Right.
They just think that he's the pilot and whatever he does, I mean, it's going to be his fault, not anybody else's, which is crazy.
Right.
Which, of course, I don't think a kid that age, you know, going through all that stuff and then going through that on top of it is going to be something that you're going to be okay with. You know what I mean? It's going to be hard.
Sure.
That's when he kind of punches him again, and then Ray shows up and says, "Hey, we got there's an emergency. I'm gonna go ahead and go there." That's the first thing you ever hear.
That's the only time you hear her talk, right?
Yeah, she's like, "There's an emergency. I'm gonna go ahead and leave." And Shinji's still on the ground. She's like has no empathy, nothing.
Just
like
walks
that.
away.
She runs.
Yeah, runs away.
She
whatever.
fucking bolts like a motherfucker, right? So you're getting to see these pieces of Ray, which is pretty cool the way they introduce her. So I mean,
yeah,
very
obviously,
frail.
like from watching it the first time, I mean, you just feel like there's a lot more story for her coming.
Yeah,
just like very mysterious character, I guess, if you will.
Very mysterious and very withdrawn
Yes.
from everybody. So she's going through the same kind of stuff that Shinji's going through, but they don't know that she's a pilot either.
Right.
All the other kids don't know.
Right.
And she's basically the first pilot that we've seen on anything, you know, but she's so hidden and kind of back there that nobody even thinks twice about her,
Sure.
which is kind of crazy, which makes sense. You know, she's almost feeling the same way that Shinji is almost. You can kind of see their parallel together because he glances over at her. He sees her whenever he walks into the class,
Right.
and she's just there, you know, so he doesn't even go up to her and talk to her because he has no idea. So already as a 14-year-old boy, you got all kinds of things happening.
Yeah, I kind of thought, and again, I don't know the story so far. I just know what I've seen so far. But it almost seemed like when she ran away, Like she's like, I'm gonna go pilot this motherfucker. You know, like I want to be.
Yeah,
like, she's like,
have
leave
to be
him
there.
laying there.
Yeah, she's
know?
going to get there at all costs, no matter
Right,
what, you know,
right.
no matter what she does. Which that's when, you know, we get to see the newer Angel. Now, the newer Angel's a badass, right? He looks pretty crazy because he looks like, how did you describe him?
Like a tumor with tentacles or something.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's
He's
very
like
strange.
It's very amphibious. More amphibious than the one that came out of the water from the first episode.
Well, the other one looked like a Silent Hill character, like we talked about a little bit, or at least not that it looked like it, but it parallels to.
Yeah, in this one, Sam Shell, and I'm going to pronounce that wrong, but Sam Shell, he looks more like I don't know, the tentacles are weird too.
Yeah.
He just he flies straight and then he stands up.
Right.
But he has no feet or anything like that. So he's just kind of like a weird invertebrate, kind of weird snake-like creature, you know?
Right.
Now, this is pretty funny too. Whenever he starts going, kind of getting closer, they start firing the weapons. At this point, you can see the Nerves in 100% total control.
Right.
There's no more generals. There's no more anybody there. They have taken over 100%. So they know.
Well, what were they going to do?
Correct.
Do another mine that didn't work?
Correct. And then even the Dr. Fiutsky, he says something like, what is it? Oh my God. Like, oh, that's a waste of taxpayers' money.
Yeah.
Which is, he's got a smile on his face, you know? And then, they mention something like, we need to launch the Ava. And they're like, those guys are so, you know, cocky. We're going to do it anyway. You know, why are they telling us what to do? That's what Masato says.
Right.
So that's when they release, you know, Ava Unit 1. Gets to the surface, and that's when Shinji, you can hear him in the background to stick with this.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, point,
He's
wait till they get there.
That mantra.
He's got to get into it and shoot.
Yeah.
But he gets a little like overzealous, and he thinks it's going to be that easy.
Right.
Like he's just going to take care of his job, and he's going to be done. So he just fires a barrage of bullets that just create that massive amount of smoke, which is fucking amazing.
Right.
I mean, he destroys I don't know how many city blocks.
A lot.
Which was cool before. At that point too, we got to see, like, right before that, we got to see the actual city going underneath from the inside as well. Did the fly get out? We get to see the city.
Oh, no.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry.
We actually get to see the city from the inside of the buildings going down into. But they don't retreat all of them either.
Yeah.
It's like they retreat like one or two blocks, and they retreat the central part of the city.
I guess I don't understand that, because why wouldn't you just take the whole thing down? That way, like, you minimize damage.
It makes everything flat.
Right.
Maybe it's for the obstacles, and then also all of the weapons that might be stored in most of those things.
That's true.
Because after Shinji gets... He does his original volley for everything, and he kind of starts really firing at it. He can't see nothing. Then he kind of almost gets decapitated,
right?
And, like, split in half by those tentacles, those energy tentacles.
Yes.
And it rips his gun up, and Masato's like, grab the other gun, but he's so frozen. But at this point too, we get to see a little bit more human interaction too, which not necessarily human, but the townspeople interaction, because they're in the shelter.
Right.
And it's Toji and Kinsuke, and they're kind of talking, and they're looking through the viewer, and you can see the states kind of taking over television so nobody sees anything,
right.
But they're all hidden underground because they've evacuated everything. So you get to see a little bit about what actually happens to the people at the time. So they're under a mountain somewhere.
Right.
And Kinsuke basically talks Toji into going upstairs and getting out, because he's like, oh man, I'm never going to get a chance to see this in my entire life.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're a slave to your passions, which is kind of funny the way that he says that. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then he starts, and Kinsuke's being a dick again, where he's kind of like, see what you did? I mean, now he's freaking out because you punched him in the yard, you know?
Right.
And he's fucking with him. He's fucking with Toji's head.
I don't understand why somebody doesn't punch that little fuck.
Yeah, I know, right? At least a couple of times. Because
that would have been the first thing that happened.
Yeah.
That's just the way he is.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to punch you, dick.
That's the way I am, bitch.
Yeah.
Sorry, I digress. Well, I didn't like that kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a little asshole at this point. So he actually... they're on the surface, and you get to see that interaction while Shinji's doing his deal. But Shinji, at that point, after he gets knocked down and almost decapitated, and the building gets destroyed, he's getting his ass kicked.
Yeah.
But that's weird about the Angel's energy tentacles too, is they can basically grab things or they can cut through things.
Right.
It's like a weird energy kind of construct for it, which is another weird form of the Angel. Which nobody knows how anything's formed or what's happened with them, anything like that.
Yeah, they don't seem like they have a lot of knowledge.
No. Even with the AT field, because that whenever Shinji comes up the very first time, whenever
in the
he
last
launches,
episode where he breaks through it?
well, he breaks through that, but they knew that the AT field was there, but they didn't know
because he launched his own AT field.
And then also whenever he gets up to the very top of in this episode before he takes on Samshel, you see this like heat kind of rise from his body, but that's the AT field going up that Nerve basically set up for him.
Oh, okay.
They institute the AT field for him, which I guess the AT field was already there, and maybe they knew about it, but the way that I've seen it is like they didn't really know how the AT field worked, and they learned from that other angel how to create one and use what was already there. So yeah, Shinji gets his ass whooped. They're destroying buildings, and then he fucking throws him. Yeah. All the way to the fucking mountain, and the two dudes are sitting outside like, it's coming right for us, but I mean, whenever you're looking at it, they look so small, right? Or the actual deal looks so small away, but then it fucking crushes that mountain. Yeah. And they're right between the fingers, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That's Shinji again is still at this point more. He's still kind of in shell shock from having to do what he's doing, because what he originally came out there to do didn't work.
Right.
So now he's kind of having to think on his head feet almost. I mean, he's got to figure out a way to beat this dude. Well, that's when he sees those guys and he's like, wait a minute, what is his school friends doing there? Right. Those are his classmates. That's when Masato, you kind of learn a little bit that kind of during the initial attack that Gendo is not there.
Right.
He's gone on some mission or something like that.
Somewhere being a dick.
Yeah, so Masato's basically in charge whenever he's not there.
Right.
Even though the other doctor, Fuyutsuki, should have been in charge. But he's really not, but he's still kind of like, he's second in charge.
But she's kind of the head of the tactical side, right?
Correct. So she kind of assumes command at that point.
Right.
Whenever he's gone. So
that's who you want in charge, not some doctor with the fancy linen.
Yeah. He's got a nice suit shit. Yeah. And she's still kind of in her bedclothes almost.
Yeah.
She's kind of in her shorts.
And nobody gives a fuck what she wears.
No, because it was an emergency. So she had to come up there whenever she was asleep and shit. Which at that point, too, I mean, you see the boys on, and she's like, you got to get them into the entry plug. But then the other doctor's like, you can't do that. You're overstepping your bounds. And she's like, well, I'm authorizing it right now.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this shit. So that's when the boys get into the entry plug, and they're like, what's that? Is that water? And then you hear that Kinsuke dude's like, my camera. So his fucking proof is gone. Right. I was thinking, too, if I was that dude, I would have maybe stashed my camera somewhere, and maybe hopefully it would have made it.
Would you have thought of that, though?
At that point, probably not.
There's like giant shit knocking your... I mean, you barely survived what just happened.
Correct. And then Shinji's like basically holding back the other angel, too, because it's attacking him. It's right on top of him.
Right.
Which is a kind of a weird way that the physics works for it, too, because he basically pushes the fucking angel away, like throws him, because it's burning the Ava's hands.
Right.
It's really like searing through everything. And he throws it away, and he's like, and then Masato's like, you need to retreat. You need to use level 37 or 34 or something like that. This is the route you need to take, and get back and let's regroup. And at that point, too, this is where he's still running on reserve power.
Right.
Because the entry plug is discussed at the very beginning about how it has 5 minutes of power once it's disconnected.
From the umbilical cord.
Correct. Piece, yeah. So the umbilical cord is still running the beast or the Ava until basically he gets severed because he throws him through a fucking building.
Yeah.
And then throws him across everything. So at that point, you and I was going to time it too to see if it was actually 5 minutes from whenever that happened.
Right.
Because you can hear them counting down. The other operators of everything are like, 3 minutes and 45 seconds. Get in now. So they get in and they start again. Shinji's like still kind of a little bit more reluctant to do anything, and he's got the two other kids, and like, what are you doing? Aren't you listening, newbie? Come on, you need to go. Let's retreat. Let's get out of here. And that's when you hit that 1 minute mark, and Shinji has already pulled the progressive knife out. That's that knife that he's a little bit talking about, the vibration knife, which is using like ultrasonics or something crazy like that.
Right.
Once it hits